Yeah. Let's start at the beginning of the story, though, Janet, if you would. So days after giving birth, you noticed that there was something a little bit different about Joel, didn't you?
Yeah, Joel, he was born on the 16th, and on the 28th he had sleep apnea.
Right, gosh,
he stopped breathing.
Frightening.
Yeah, he stopped breathing, and that continued all the way through until he was 2 years old. It slowed down a bit from 18 months. But yeah, he's at once to 4 times a night he would stop breathing.
And how did that develop before you got the diagnosis that you were looking for?
After that, we didn't really, to us, we didn't notice that he wasn't looking at the cameras and, well, you know, the photos and different things, but his speech wasn't coming along at all. He wasn't talking at all. We had our own language as far as like doing hand movements and stuff like that, didn't we? But he preferred just to be, he would pace. Wherever we were, he would find a route and he would just pace back and forth, back and forth.
Just let my kind of little imagination run free a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was at 7 that you were diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and a relief for everybody to know what it was.
Yeah, it was. It was. A lot of people say to me, were you really upset? Yes, of course we were upset inside, but actually it was a relief because we thought finally people would understand Joel. Finally would get the help that we needed. And we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And about, what was it, when I was 10 or something, 9? I don't know, I've forgotten.
I don't know, what you're going to say? You say.
Well, what was that? When a few years later I got Caddy here.
Yes,
yes,
the
you
big
did.
turning
Yes.
point.
What was life like before Caddy?
Oh, that's I just it kind of put some tears in my eyes when every time someone says that.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll ask Mum then. In that case. I'll ask Mum.
He was very much in his own little world, to where it wasn't in our world. The world scared him. You know, it still does to a certain extent, but back then he shied away from it. He would hide, he would run, he wanted to get away, he would put his fingers right in his ears if the noise was too much. There was no emotions except for screaming and crying. There was no smiles, there was no talking, you know. He just wasn't in our world.
So it was through this amazing organisation, Dogs for Good, and it was through them that they put you in touch with the right people that you could find an autism assistance dog. Yeah. And you hadn't heard of this either. So
no, it was the paediatrician that actually told us, and I was like, what's? I hadn't heard of it, you know, at all, and so I looked it up, and then it was the next time we went to paediatricians again, and he said, you should look into it. And at the time, my husband didn't like dogs, so I didn't. But there was 2 things that really changed my mind. And one was this one time I was walking down the road, and I was right in front of me. He was, but I couldn't hold on to him. He wouldn't let me at that time hold his hand or anything. Yeah. And when he walks, he skips and does his arms and stuff in his little world. And he just skipped out into the road. And my son, that's a little bit older than Joel, went straight after him to grab him, and a car stopped within a millimetre of him. I really thought...
Nearly knocked them both over?
Both. I really thought that they were out of reach, and I really thought that they were both going to be run down that day.
Yeah.
So they're very brilliant, these organisations, at matching the dog to the person. And from day one, when you brought Caddy home, you went straight out in the garden.
Yeah. Before I had a Caddy, I could never go outside. And first time we saw Caddy, which was on the preview, wasn't it?
It was. They brought Caddy out to see how Joel and the family would react to a dog and see how Joel would react to a dog. And within 20 minutes of being at our house, and unbeknown to us that Caddy was the dog they was thinking, but they were both outside in the back garden, and Joel was throwing a ball, and he wouldn't go out. And
you saw him smile.
Well, he had like a little smile. The first smile, it was like the little corner of his mouth kind of went up, and then gradually over the next coming, like it wasn't even because I had to go in for training for 10 days because Caddy had been trained fully. He had 1 year's of socialising, then 1 year's of training, so he knew all the commands and I didn't. So I had to go for training for 10 days. But we lived at the time closer to Banbury then, and I was able to bring Caddy home every night. And by the time at that end of those 10 days, Joel was smiling.